Flavio is totally isolated and has been completely abandoned by everyone, even people from the PL. Look, they don't want to be with him. Why is that, Andre? It's because he's dirty as hell. How are you going to get together with someone that dirty? There's no way, right? Unless you want to get yourself burned. And Michelle doesn't want that. But she's being pressured. Let's see how it turns out. Meanwhile, put on Lula Tetra just to keep the tradition. And Flavio Bolsonaro, your future is already set in stone. You're going to jail as soon as you lose parliamentary immunity. Let's see here. Master, Vorcaro will have to turn in Flavio Bolsonaro as part of a plea deal negotiated by Michelle's former lawyers. What's going on, my dear? Daniel Vorcaro changed lawyers again. He switched lawyers, then switched again, and now he switched again. He changed lawyers. And his hope is to improve his legal situation. So he wants a lawyer, the same Michelle as Michelle, Italy from Coisa, from Bolsonaro, to try to cut a plea deal. But it was made very clear that the federal police already knows too much. Way too much. But for the plea bargain to be valid, he has to turn in Flavio Bolsonaro. But why, Andre? Because Flavio Bolsonaro, until now, he was the only one who had a leaked video. No, not a video, a leaked audio. Leaked. Of demanding millions of reais from Daniel Vorcaro. You might say, oh, Andre, but it's for the movie. Oh, Andre, what is it? You can say whatever nonsense you want. But so far, he hasn't proven anything, Flavio. You know that more than 60 million was transferred. They say it was for the movie. Then we already know it was for the fund, according to them too. The Hovergate Fund. The person responsible is Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer, and the money went all the way to Texas. But to this day, no one has accounted for any of this and showed nothing. Nothing. Do you know what nothing is? None of this. It's been 83 days since Flavio said he would give an account, and he still hasn't. So no one really knows. And whether we like it or not, Flavio, from what everything indicates, is up to his neck in this. And this whole thing is still unfolding. So either he tells everything or he's going to fail again, because he already tried to make a plea deal. It didn't work. The second time didn't work either. Why? Because the police know much more than he's saying. Then he keeps trying to sweet talk the police. Then the police look at his plea deal and say, send it to the prosecutor general. And the prosecutor general goes, And for a plea deal to move forward, especially the prosecutor general, has to be, that signature is what approves it. So it can proceed. And he'll have to hand over the big fish. And who is the big fish? By all indications. And who was demanding money from Daniel Vorcaro? Millions and millions and millions of reais. They say there's a video of him cheating and betraying his wife, along with Daniel Vorcaro's sleazy crap. They say there's another one of him, the Esterquino Daniel Vorcaro, and that there's another one of him at Daniel Vorcaro's house. That's why he couldn't find anyone to be his running mate. He's like a brother to him, right, guys? Daniel Vorcaro. He said that, Flavio said it. So that's why he couldn't find a running mate. Everyone is afraid of what will still be revealed. Only a little bit has been revealed so far, like that audio of him demanding millions of reais from Daniel Vorcaro. Do you understand? So there's no way around it, right? That's why when I say Lula Teta, it's not really Lula Teta, preferably in the first round. In the first round, it would calm us down, make us happy right away, calm things down and all that, right? Because in the meantime, There are people trying to put ideas into that junk owner's weak head so the junk owner can arrest Lula, invade Brazil, and attack Brazil. Andrea, what? Am I lying or am I not lying? Look here, guys, for God's sake. In English, Eduardo Bolsonaro incites Trump to attack Brazil and arrest Lula, and following in Maduro's footsteps. Look here. He spoke, let's see what the future holds for Brazil. But the last time someone tried to follow in those footsteps, he ended up in jail in New York. Says Eduardo Bolsonaro in English in a video where he cooks up a conspiracy theory against the country. And these people here, you know, that Flavio Bolsonaro can't beat Lula. I know that too. You know that too. Flavio can't beat Lula. No one can, especially not Flavio. He can't win. The danger is these people here trying to sabotage and trying to influence the American government to attack Brazil, to arrest Lula, and to interfere in the elections. And it's not because Trump wants to fight. No, it's because Trump, he wants a president of the republic, someone who's just his sidekick. That he's his lapdog, that he's his vassal. And Lula never was and never will be, never will be. But Flavio Bolsonaro has already made himself available for that. To be Donald Trump's little lapdog. Notably, when he sent the letter 2 months ago to Donald Trump saying that if he won the elections in Brazil, the whole transition team would already be ready so that Donald Trump could put whoever he wanted in the ministries and adopt whatever measures Donald Trump considered necessary and appropriate here in Brazil. He put the transition government in Donald Trump's hands. It's in this document. And everything they're doing is to see if they can convince Donald Trump to interfere in the electoral process. Because with the electronic voting machines in the electoral system, he can't beat Lula. The danger lies in the interference that could come from the United States. Not without reason, Lula has already said that he will talk to Donald Trump again. Because the devils are in his mind day and night. Attack Brazil. Arrest Lula. Arrest Lula. Attack Brazil. Let's go. Let's take over Brazil for you. Let's take over Brazil. That's what they're doing. And Flavio knows what I'm talking about. Because otherwise, he wouldn't have written 2 letters to Donald Trump, putting Brazil on its knees before Donald Trump if he wins the election. So it's a shame, guys. It's a shame. But there's a catch. Eduardo Bolsonaro said, Amen. Last week, he cried. Why? Because he knows that soon he will be on the run. You know that he has already been convicted by the Federal Supreme Court for the crime of coercion in the course of legal proceedings. He has already been convicted. It's in the final stage of the trial. Final stage of what? Appeal. And he won't win. Once the conviction decision becomes final, then the sentence is carried out. And he has to go to Papuda prison. He goes to semi-open prison. So how does the semi-open regime work? He goes to prison. If he gets a job, he has the right to leave during the day to work. If he doesn't have a job, he stays in Papuda prison all the time. When he starts serving his sentence, he won't show up to start serving it. What will that cause? He will be considered a fugitive. Interpol will be notified. His extradition will be requested. We know that with Donald Tranquera as president, Donald Tranquera won't extradite him. We know that. He will even, in a way, try to shield them. But those little trips that Eduardo took, Bolsonaro keeps going back and forth, there won't be any more of that. Because he will be arrested at the airport. In countries that aren't bootlickers like the United States, that's why he cried. Hey, on my trips at immigration, seriously, kudos to immigration. I myself was stopped at immigration, searched. My suitcase was turned inside out. They asked what I was going to do, what I went there for, what I was doing. I showed them everything. Everything, every little thing, documents, everything in order, all that stuff. You can go, you can leave, you can go, you're good to go. Everyone is inspected. Why wouldn't he be inspected? And if he goes to any airport, he will be arrested. But yes. So like they're desperate. These coup plotters, fascists, Bolsonaro supporters, they know that their only chance is a coup. And they don't have the competence to pull off a coup here in Brazil. Bolsonaro, for example, is in prison. He's going to serve 27 years and 3 months. He's already paying for it because they couldn't do it. Because they're so incompetent that they couldn't pull it off. So what are they trying to do then? Just causing trouble. They're hoping that Donald Tranquera will help them pull off a coup here, because the only way for them to escape prison is through a coup. It's the only way. For them to take down Lula, it's a coup, because Lula doesn't lose elections. So we have to stay very alert to all of this and understand that they are so desperate, because just so you know, Flavio Bolsonaro in one of his interviews said that if he wins the elections, because he knows that if he wins, it will be through a coup. He said that his father, who is going to hand him the presidential sash, his father is a prisoner. I'm showing you this because every now and then they let it slip, right? Because he tries to sell the idea that he's moderate, that he's going to respect the Supreme Court, that he's going to do this and that, but then they let it slip. They can't hold it in and they let it slip. For Bolsonaro to hand over the presidential sash to Flavio, only if there's a coup, and they can't even pull that off. Only if it's a coup or direct interference from the United States. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So like I always tell you, Lula has to prepare for the worst, hoping for the best, but he has to stay alert with all his might. Do you understand, my dear? Because these people can't be underestimated either. He's weak. Donald Trump is a braggart, but he's dangerous, and you have to prepare for the worst, but always believe in the best, which is what? They're all weak. It's all just bravado. But you have to stay cautious. Do you understand, my dear? It's just like us. You have to stay cautious. Because they're weak and boastful, but they're dangerous and above all, treacherous. Do you understand? Wonderful. That's why you're making it Lula for a 4th time, Flavio. He's desperate. And Michelle better get ready because they're all over her. And they're all over her. And she's going to have to be strong. Otherwise, she's in trouble. Meanwhile, the AGU is going to court to take Discord down. Just garbage. Discord? Donate? I don't even know what that is. Taken offline after Janja's appeal and a case of self-harm. Jorge Messias announced a public civil action against the platform, citing a lack of commitment to Brazilian legislation and failures in the protection of minors. What happened yesterday? Lula enforced harsher penalties for people who commit crimes through social networks, especially against children and teenagers. I don't even know this platform, guys. Discovery? Discord? 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 I don't even know what that is, but they say it's a terrible, horrible thing. Got it? I'm going to show you some situations here. So Lula yesterday just signed and enacted harsher penalties for anyone who uses social media, no matter which one, especially to attack and incite all kinds of situations against children and teenagers. Then on that occasion, Yanya talked about a situation that happened just yesterday. Very serious, about a teenager who took her own life because of that platform, Discord. It's no wonder it's called Discord, right? Discord, as in Discord. You get it? But that's probably what it is. Something from the devil, really. You know, I'm going to play a video here, 2 videos, and one of them features Janja so we can understand what's going on. Let's first understand what happens on this platform, which is an example of a situation that needs to be fought against. And the legislation that Lula just put into effect aims exactly to fight this. Let's see an explanation of what happened and how this platform works. Pay attention.
The girl named Livia, 13 years old, took her own life live during a broadcast on Discord. This happened in Mato Grosso do Sul. The sequence with Livia was this. First, they gave her the mission to torture and kill the animal. Reports mentioned cats. She couldn't do it. Since she didn't complete the challenge, the humiliation was severe. Screenshots show harsh insults, useless trash, constant pressure, threats, isolation. Then came the final order. She wrote a farewell letter and took her own life while the camera was on. During the broadcast, the group gave orders in real time. Do this, position the camera. They watched the self-harm for more than 45 minutes. They encouraged it. When the live stream ended, they did a poll. Does anyone want more? Already setting the next date. The mother found her daughter lifeless on the balcony of their house. They didn't get to her by accident. Understand that. These groups operate on closed servers on Discord and Telegram. They attract vulnerable teenagers, gain their trust, isolate them, and start giving them online challenges. The crueler the challenge, the higher the teenager rises in the group's hierarchy. They even found out that the group created a PIX key in the victim's own name to send money so she could buy a blade to cut herself. Guys, this is not an internet joke. This is incitement to suicide. This is a criminal organization. It's digital sadism with children and teenagers. Now, I'm going to tell you the part that saves lives. Dad, mom, if your son or daughter spends hours on Discord, if you even know what that is, or any closed server, without you knowing what's going on in there, you're handing your child over to these predators. Get into your child's phone, demand the passwords, check the Discord servers and Telegram groups they're in, talk without judgment but be firm. Ask if anyone has ever asked them to do a challenge or send a photo or video or made threats. Activate parental controls and set time limits.
Protect your child today. Share this video now. Children shouldn't be touched. Children should be protected.
Well, at the same time as the announcement of the tragedy that happened yesterday, Lula was signing into law the bill that increases the penalties for people who do this kind of thing on social media. Because we have to make it very clear, everyone has freedom of speech, and this is guaranteed by the federal constitution. We are free. We have the freedom to express our thoughts and freedom of speech. But we do not have the freedom to incite suicide, incite crime, pedophilia, death, any of that. Unfortunately, there are people who use social media for that. And it gets even more serious when it's against teenagers and children who in many situations don't know how to defend themselves and have a certain cognitive vulnerability. And they are easily influenced. So the situation is even more serious. Then Lula started to sign and announce this new legislation with harsher penalties for people who commit this type of crime on social media. Then Yanja asked to speak. Let's see here. This is very important. I'm asking you now to like the live stream, which is very important, and share it. This is a very serious matter. Look here, check this out.
I actually wanted to ask the minister and even our minister from the AGU, what are the tools that we have? Because we think that punishment is already very well covered. But I think we need to take Discord down immediately. This is my appeal. We need to block Discord in Brazil no matter what. We need to find ways to make this happen, Minister. I can't accept seeing a 13-year-old girl mutilate herself live on the internet, on Discord, and die and hang herself. I just can't accept a country like this. So we need to find the legal means, and I'm making an appeal here so that we can do it. This is not an isolated case. There are many, many cases, and we need to work together with the judiciary to take this horrible network down. Horrible. And it's not just with children and teenagers. It especially affects women too. Sorry for venting.
Mr. President, if you allow me, due to the relevance of the topic, the Digital Secretary wanted to share some important news about the subject.
The Honorable Mr. President, the Honorable First Lady, in addition to the information provided by Minister Wellington, yes, in this operation, we identified, in the case of the Discord platform, a systemic failure in all the mechanisms that were created to protect children and adolescents. There was no age verification on any of the servers where the live stream was happening. The live stream lasted more than 40 minutes online, being broadcast to a group of more than 200 people at that moment. And the violence that happened there victimized a second teenager, a 17-year-old girl, who fortunately survived the situation. And Livia, this 13-year-old DE from Navarai, in the countryside of Mato Grosso do Sul, ended up being the main victim of this episode, right? And this shows how platforms must be held responsible. Accountability must be enforced, right? And we did this immediately. We pointed out all the flaws, and we are monitoring this situation. In this particular case, law enforcement even requested that the platform be suspended, and the judge ultimately denied that request. But we are closely monitoring the situation to determine the responsibility of the platform.
Mr. President, in light of the information provided by our Secretary of Digital Affairs, I will ask the Minister of Justice to immediately forward all this information formally to the Office of the Attorney General so that we can file a public civil action against the platform, requesting that it be held accountable immediately and that its use in Brazil be suspended, since it has no commitment to Brazilian law and does not protect children and adolescents. Thank you. If you want to bring this information to my office today, thank you very much.
The president is signing it into law. Live and in color, signing UPR 3066.
I'm not going to talk. I'll just say this. Something important is happening here. Besides signing the law, besides working, is that we are increasingly understanding every day that the fight against digital crime needs to be faster. Because it is faster than the crime we were used to in real life. Everything happens in seconds, in milliseconds, when you think about fighting one thing and something else already comes up. What's important for us to make clear is that this law improves. You know, everything that already existed in Brazil to make it better, to strengthen the fight against all types of crime in the digital area. But the important thing is this. There are two things that please me about your behavior here in this meeting. The first the seriousness with which the National Congress took on the responsibility of passing a law. Taking it very seriously. Because not long ago, within the National Congress, there were a lot of people who thought there shouldn't be any punishment because it would be an attack on freedom of speech. Okay? And we have to take responsibility and say it loud and clear that we're not going to allow it to be confused with something called freedom of speech, which we all defend, which is the right of people to express themselves for or against something. But that does not allow freedom of speech to be confused with genocide, with murder, with violence, with triviality. But what about being human? It needs to be clear. Okay, there are limits. Because that's the exercise of full democracy. It's about knowing that no matter how much freedom we have, we need to have limits. And the limit is not to hurt others. The other person's freedom. And a child who is 13, 12, or 11 years old is a child who doesn't have the strength to react on their own. Either the state takes responsibility and creates the conditions, and we need to have it. I don't know if it's already in federal policy, but we have to create our own conditions, do whatever needs to be done to punish as strongly as possible. Anyone who tries to break the law of this country and tries to abuse the wealth of this digitalized world to do wrong things. I don't know if there's a federal police delegate here, It would be important for you to tell the press what kind of crimes you find in this digital world.
I'm going to thank you for the opportunity.
What was your name, dear?
Wasn't it Rafaela? I'm Rafaela Parker. I'm a federal police delegate, and I'm the general coordinator of the area of combating sexual abuse and hate crimes in the federal police. I would like to thank my boss in advance for his trust and support. And for the past 9 years, my daily routine has been to see photos and videos of sexual violence against children and teenagers. And what I see is extremely harmful because we're talking about babies, right? We're talking about teenagers, very young children who are vulnerable and really don't have the ability to defend themselves. So I think that all the laws that are being published, that are coming into effect, this one in particular, make it possible not only to crack down, which is very important, right? People need to have a fair and appropriate sentence. The police need to have the means to investigate. But they also bring what I think is most important, which is prevention. Right? The possibility, because I think the success of our work is not only in the number of operations and arrests, but it's mainly in what no one sees, which is a child who didn't have to become a victim. It's a family that didn't have to get a call from us. And they don't need that because we need a lot of mechanisms to protect these children, especially in the digital environment, which wasn't designed for them, right? That exploits their vulnerabilities, their innocence. So I think we're on the right track. And without a doubt, I think it's a pioneering law worldwide because I take part in many international events. And I see that Brazil is indeed a great model for fighting child and adolescent sexual abuse and exploitation.
Yes, I have to say it's a great model because we have Lula as the president of the republic. Because if Bolsonaro were the president, he would say that people were exaggerating. No, it's just a joke. No, it's just kidding, and so on. And we don't have to look far to notice that. I will never forget. I followed the federal Supreme Court hearing, which happened not long ago. I don't know if you remember the federal Supreme Court hearing where the full court started to analyze whether the platforms were responsible or not for what is published on them. Do you remember this hearing? I showed you some parts of it. Then Andre Mendonça cast the dissenting vote. He said that the platform shouldn't be held responsible. But it does have to be held responsible. Not only does the person who posts it have to be held responsible, obviously, but the platform must also be held responsible. Let's use this example from Discord. Do you think Discord isn't seeing and isn't aware of what's being posted there? Of course, they know everything that's posted and everything that's put there. And even so, they let it happen. Why? Because they're making money from it. That's why the platforms have to be held accountable, yes. And Andre Mendonça said no. He said the platform shouldn't be held accountable. How come? People only post because there's a platform. And look, the Federal Supreme Court established liability in this ruling for explicitly violent acts like being a pedophile or acts of explicit violence. We're not talking about just anything. In this Discord case, I'll repeat it for you. The platform doesn't know what they're doing. They know what they're doing there, and they're allowing explicit acts of violence against teenagers and children. And according to Andre Mendonça, the platform shouldn't be held responsible. Do you understand? Guys, for God's sake. Then you say, but Andre, does the platform really know? My dear, as soon as my live stream ends, I go on YouTube right here. Everything I said is there. YouTube knows everything I say. Everything. YouTube's computers know everything I say. I ask for a summary. They have artificial intelligence here. I ask for a summary of my video. They give me a summary of my video, what I said, what I didn't leave out. They know everything. So much so that YouTube takes down a lot of things when they're abusive. That's not the case for me, thank God. There was even a time when YouTube took down one of my videos and I didn't know why. I didn't know why. I said, guys, but why? I was talking about the genocide of the Yanomami people, of the Yanomami indigenous people, of children. Very thin, that whole situation that was happening. Do you remember? During Bolsonaro's government? That's right. I showed this. I talked about it in the video. And YouTube simply took down my video. And I couldn't understand why. Because it was really well done work, a public service expose. And YouTube just took it down. Then I got really upset. I contacted YouTube and asked, but why did you take down the video? At first they couldn't say, then again they couldn't say, and I insisted, what happened? I need to know. Then they came and told me, Andrea, your video was taken down because you showed images of children in a state of semi-nudity. They were indigenous children who only wear those little things, as we all know. I posted it specifically to show how thin the Yanomami children are and the whole situation they were going through. I didn't show their faces, right? Of course, I kept their faces hidden, but they said, look, YouTube has a very strict policy of not accepting anything against children and teenagers. And YouTube's system determined that you were exposing children's bodies. Of course, my post, I repeat, did not show the child's face. And I made it kind of blurry. What I was showing was the child, how she lives in her homeland, the indigenous people. And how thin they were, starving and doing all the work. If you've been following me for a while, you remember that live stream I did. That's when I found out what happened. Then I told them no, but the context wasn't about violence against children or pedophilia or anything like that. The context was that I was actually making a report against violence towards children, towards the Yanomami people. They said, I know, Andrea, we know that. Otherwise, we would have taken it down. It would have been your channel. If we noticed that you were doing anything related to pedophilia, anything wrong, we wouldn't have just taken down your video. We would have taken down your channel. The thing is, we have this standard, but YouTube's system doesn't allow it. And there's no way to restore it. And I did a really good job even reporting this situation. I'm giving you this example so you understand that there are still platforms that have responsibility. Now, this Discord, it has no responsibility at all. The worse it gets, the better he likes it. This cannot be accepted. That's why the Supreme Federal Court decided that in explicit cases of violence, pedophilia, in all such situations, the platform is also responsible because they know everything we do here. And it really can't be allowed under any circumstances to commit crimes, engage in pedophilia, or do anything like that, especially when we are talking about and dealing with children and teenagers. And it's a good thing that we have Lula, and it's a good thing that we have this government today, which is an example of fighting this kind of criminal, including on social media, and with the support of the Supreme Federal Court, except, of course, for Andre Mendonça, where the platforms are also responsible. So that says a lot, right, about Bolsonarism. That speaks for itself. And give Lula a ton of likes, my dear. Thank you so much, and see you on the next live stream. Take care. Bye-bye. See you later.